I found this part with the Sufism very interesting, with this 115-year-old man, and he says the essence of Sufism is truth. Will you ever make a film about Sufism, or
that's a genius question. I really want to make a film about Sufism. I saw a film recently called The Sufi Soul, and it was crap. It was made by the BBC, and it was completely wrong. Like, ideas they put out about Sufism were completely wrong. I don't think there has been a good...
they are pursued everywhere in the Islamic world, even in Turkey.
They're illegal in Turkey, and my background is that I've studied Islam since I was in high school. When I was in high school, I insisted that we do Islamic studies, and no one had ever done it before. So the reason I could teach in Muslim institutions is because of my knowledge of history and culture and language and so on in Islam. And this is a passion for me. I think this is a time when people have got to be bridge builders, and that's why, like with your film, it was wonderful that you went to Kabul and showed the film. I just haven't got the money to do it. But no, the next two films, I'm making one really hard film called Comic Wars, which is about the American soldiers' comic attitude to war, and I'll be out with the soldiers fighting every day. I've already started shooting that film. And that'll be like my film Soundtrack to War, where I link music and war. And comics are enormously popular, and so that's a way of me getting the MTV generation to watch a film about a war which is being fought by people, young people. And the other film I'm doing is Scarface in Kabul. And I'm not sure I'll even survive making that, because it's about the wildest, most daring, crazy, fucked up thing I've ever thought of. I'm actually taking my group of actors to Kabul, and we're remaking the Scarface movie as a Pashtun drama, you know, Scarface with cocaine and stuff. And we'll be going to the homes of real drug lords. Some of the most lavish homes in the world now are opium lords in Kabul. The most expensive real estate in the world is in Kabul. And yeah, so that's that film. You know, you can imagine the moment when I've got my bunch of actors and I go up to some American, you know, captain who runs a whole lot of Black Hawk helicopters. I said, well, Captain, you know, I'm trying to help the Afghan film industry. We want Afghanistan just to be like Hollywood, to be like America. They need Hollywood too. Now, I need to borrow 7 Black Hawks next week. You know that wonderful film that was made in America by Francis Ford Coppola, you know, Apocalypse Now, with that great scene with all the helicopters coming in? I want to do one of those. I want to do that with the Afghans, but they can't afford it. We can't rent helicopters. Can I have your helicopters? You say, well, yes, sir, you can have our helicopters. And that'll be so funny. Then you'll suddenly see, you know, my actors, known as werewolves and stuff, hanging out of these American helicopters, and everyone will have a good laugh. And you know, that's the style of film I'm making. So it's hijinks, it's conceptual art. I mean, many of the principles that were developed in modernism, like conceptual art, people like Beuys, you know, performance art, all this kind of thing, I put into my films. And that's why the art world is still interesting to me. I'm not a journalist. Like the curator of contemporary art, Tony Bond, in the Art Gallery of New South Wales in Sydney, looked at Miscreants and he said, George, why do you have to make such a strange film? You've got access to that country, why don't you just make a straight documentary? I don't just make a straight documentary because I still am an artist. And I'm still challenging artists. I'm still challenging artists just as Andy Warhol did. And I had a lovely experience in Amsterdam. You might think that I'm rude and I'm abrupt and I'm nasty to the other people on the committee and all this sort of thing. But I'll tell you what happened in Amsterdam. I hate it when I've got like for me, my recurring nightmare when I'm making a documentary is doing a Q&A like this. This is why I get so wound up. Because I am passionate about what I do and people ask these stupid questions over and over again. And one of them is always, why do you have to get involved? Why can't you just be a fly on the wall? Why can't you just make a standard documentary? So I had a young Italian filmmaker sitting in the front row, and he came up with that. And I stood up and I said, look, sweetie, darling. And I just completely fucked with his head, you know? I made him feel like a worm. And then then I answered the question. Anyway, a few days later, I'm walking on a cold night through Amsterdam, dark alley, and he was huge, this Italian, young Italian. Comes up to me really fast on his bike, and I thought, okay, this is it, you know. Gets off, puts his arms around me, and he said, you know, that was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. All those years at film school where I wanted to do documentaries, they told me I had to obey all these rules. I just lost all that dogma, and I realised that you had to be harsh to me to make you think. The reason why I do this style of Q&A is I've done thousands of Q&As. I'm bored with Q&As. So as not to be bored, I stir things up. I tease people, I'm cruel to people, I say harsh things. But that's just me as a theatre person trying to do what I've done in this film. This Q&A is like the film. You're seeing a Q&A in the style of the film. Anyway, this young Italian then said to me, I hope I can come back to you someday and show you a film that's worthy of showing you. And so that had a big impact, but it didn't have that impact if I just had a nice, quiet, you know, discussion, you know, and not stirred anyone up. So that's what it's all about.
Your films are very irritating, and I find irritation in art is very important, that something can stay, something can change, and hope you will go on to irritate us furthermore.
It's about irritation, that's right.
Gibt es noch Fragen? Is there any more questions? Any more statements, George?
I'd like to thank Helen for doing such a great performance, and let's have another clap for Helen. I love Rising Gallery.
Thank you very much for coming to Bern. Thank you very much for participating in this discussion. Thank you. Merci vielmals für das Kommen. Ich glaube, es hat noch Züge für Wurst und Käse. There is more possibility to go on with the discussions. And the exhibition in the Gallery Duflon Racz, go to see it. It's also irritating, and you will be very much impressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.